Ooh. Well, this is exciting. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and the lovely people at Paul Rubens contacted me a little while ago and asked me if I would like to review their most recent set of watercolours. Naturally the answer to that was yeah, and here they are. So these are the 5th generation artist level watercolours, and it is pans. So this is the latest incarnation. These are called YouLan, and I have been informed that in Chinese that means an orchid born in the valley, which just sounds so pretty. And we're going to put this through its paces today and just see what it can do. I did have a set of Rubens paints at one point. Eventually I gave them away just because I had this plethora of watercolour. So I'm actually quite interested to kind of rediscover these. The good news is that if you are an Amazon Prime customer, these paints are going to be included in the Prime Day event, which runs today, which is the 16th of July, and tomorrow the 17th. Unfortunately, Amazon UK and Amazon DE, so German Amazon, are not participating in the Prime Day event due to stock levels. But if you shop from any of the other major Amazon sites, you can get 20% off these in the Prime Day event. Links to all the different Amazon sites are down in the description, so you can click straight on them and go and grab yourself a set of these and get yourself a wee bargain. These are currently retailing on Amazon UK for £50, well it's £49.99, and that is them at full price. Bearing in mind this is a set of 24, they're still pretty budget friendly as far as paints go. So let's open this up. The box is quite cute, it's kind of pretty. It's got this nice, oh okay. They do come in both pink and black. I have been given a pink one. So let's just, I don't know why I was trying to prize that out there. I do have a little bit of pigment floating about. And we have also got this little leaflet in here. So let's take a look at this. Obviously I'm blind to this. I've literally just opened it, so I'm seeing it for the first time too. So we've got a colour chart. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the differences in just a second. I'm just really nosy and wanted to get into this and see what's here. Oh, they've given us a little swatch card as well. Oh, that's so nice. Okay, very good. So basically what they're saying is that, see, this is the 5th incarnation of these paints. And they've tried to improve upon the last one. I think I might have had the 2nd or 3rd generation set just like off the top of my head. One of the things that I'm hoping will be most noticeable is it's a new colour scheme. So not the same as the previous incarnation, but also they're touting better transparency and light fastness compared to the last set as well. So let's open this bad boy up. Okay, so we've got our half pans here. We'll go through those in just a minute. Just to talk about the tin, it is a fairly standard tin, to be fair. They kind of talked about a luxurious tin. This seems like a pretty standard metal tin. It does have a little thumb hole so you can hang on to your paints while you are painting. So if you like to paint outside, you've got plenty of wells as well for mixing. Again, this is kind of standard for these metal tins, and you do have a little bit of space in the middle. If you want to cram like some of your, maybe your own colours in, you know, if there's specific colours you like, you can always put them lengthwise in there, and you know, even with a little magnet if you don't want them sliding about. So I would say, apart from the fact it's got this sort of pretty like tiger print effort, I'm assuming it's meant to be tiger print, it might not, it might just be patterned. I would say that the tin is fairly standard. So now I've got the nice job of unwrapping these all, so I'm going to do that and I'm going to join you again in just a minute. I have unwrapped these pans, and see now when we do this we can go, ooh! Okay, so just some observations when I was doing that. Again, with most tins, I didn't mention this earlier, but you can lift the entire thing out. It's great for cleaning, and it's easier to get these half pans in and out because they're held in with it. It's like a bendy bit of metal. I might show you from the side. This part here is quite flexible, so you can get things in and out. So that's all lovely jubbly. These are just standard half pans, and if I take one out here, one of my first concerns is there is no identifying marks on the actual half pan itself. This is literally just a plain piece of plastic. That in itself isn't really an issue, but this is where it becomes an issue. If you have a bit of a mix-up, you know, if you're in transit and the actual blocks of colour fall out of these palettes and you can't remember what order they were in, you might get yourself in a bit of a pickle. But also some of these darker ones look practically the same when they're dry. So just something to be aware of. Anyway, moving on a little bit, if we look at the actual packaging for this, obviously each one of these half pans has this little cover on it, and the information on the side is quite helpful. This is pretty tiny. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this in any sort of capacity. Oh, there we go. So it tells you what they call the carrier, so that's like the binder is Arabic gum, but also just underneath there it tells you the pigment, the actual code for the pigment. It gives you the light fast resistance and stars underneath there. Again, obviously been translated from Chinese, so they call it weathering resistance, but that's the same thing. And what interests me mostly is at the very bottom, I hope you can read, I'm trying to there, transparency. Now, I would think for watercolours of any description that, you know, they would be semi-transparent. So there's some that say semi-coverage, so I'm assuming that's semi-transparent. There are others though, like this first colour up here, which is the Naples yellow. It says full coverage, so does that mean it's opaque? Or is it just more opaque than the semi-opaque ones or the semi-transparent ones, whichever way you want to look at it. So I'm quite interested to see if we've got any that are very transparent. And right away, the one next door to the Naples yellow, which is lemon yellow, colour with PY3, and it says translucency. I think that's kind of like the equivalence. And I am really keen to test this out because one of the things that they are sort of advertising about these as well is that they have excellent diffusion and high transparency, you know, so the colours blend quite naturally and evenly. Better diffusion than previous Paul Rubens artist watercolours. The transparency is higher and the spread of watermarks is more uniform. Again, that's something we're going to see fairly quickly. I just want to see how many of these are in each category. So after a short study session there, right, so this complicates things a wee bit because there's actually 4 categories and not 3 as I originally thought. There is fully transparent, which is what I didn't find earlier. And then they have translucent, and then there's semi-transparency, and then full coverage. I really want to kind of put that into like a Scottish grading system. In Scottish, I think that would be the fully transparent ones would be watery. The translucent ones would be a bit bogging. The semi-transparent ones would be you can see a wee bit. And the full coverage ones would be can you see hee-haw? Meaning you wouldn't be able to see anything through it. Obviously that's not the technical classification we are going to use because we are better than that here, but let's just get down to some swatching and I will let you know what grade of transparency they're supposed to have as we go along. Now here's the next part where I've been spoiled rotten. Not only did Paul Rubens send me the paints, they sent me some of their watercolour paper as well. I really enjoy the watercolour paper in their sketchbooks. I've got one, so I'm quite excited for this. And you can see it is all in Chinese though, so it's not much use to me. I do see the number 300, so I'm assuming it's 300 GSM. Oh, it's all so nicely packaged as well. Oh, okay, so here's the paper. Oh my goodness. This paper has glitter in it. I was not expecting that. Ah, jeez. Well, that's kind of cute. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this. I'm going to try with the torch on my phone. Can you? Oh, look. It's so sparkly. I think that's going to have to be a whole separate video, guys, honestly. Right, let's not test it on the sparkly paper. Sparkly watercolour. Well, that's just made my day. Okay, I'm going to go for something a little bit less fancy. Also something mid-range and reliable. So I'm going to test them out on Strathmore watercolour paper. This is the 400 series. This is kind of like the middle of the road stuff. This is a cold press paper, as is the Paul Rubens paper that they've sent me. This is just minus the sparkles. This is a really reliable everyday paper for me, so and I know how it behaves as well, and it plays nicely with most watercolours, so I feel that this would be the best option for us here. So first of all, I'm just going to have a quick swatch out of these in the order that they're in the palette, and that's just basically going to serve me as like a sanity check. I'm going to re-swatch them after that based on their transparencies, because I feel like that's the best way to do this right now. Now, I've deliberately not looked at the transparency ratings when I'm doing this because I just want to put the colours down, but the Naples yellow was full coverage, so I would be kind of disappointed if it didn't at least make a half decent effort. Oh my god, the pigment in this is mental. Like, it's desperate to just cling to the brush and go anywhere the water goes. Like, it is the most cooperative. Did you see that there, the way that ran down to the bottom? It's like the most cooperative watercolour I've ever seen, I think. See what this orange is like. I guarantee this is going to be offensive. It's not bad, actually. Oh yeah, it is. Okay. I really, like, that was the tiniest amount of paint. Come on, guys. Wowie. I love the way it's going down on this cold pressed paper as well. I'll zoom you in a wee bit and move you over. I will do a close-up of this when I'm finished, but this is crazy. That's just the tiniest amount of paint. Oh, look at that now. Oh, I like this. This might be one of the translucent or the transparent colours. Let's try the one next door. Oh yeah. Oh, I had a bit of bleed there. See, it's away again. Look, it's got a mind of its own. This stuff's frisky. These all look quite similar on the camera, but they're not. This one's very, like, fuchsia-y. Oh, look. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking my language. It's a lovely indigo colour there. I'm excited for the blues and greens. I know instantly in my mind some of these colours are quite bright, but the minute that this bad boy came out, the first thought that came into my head was I can mute down all of these colours with this and get exactly the kind of aesthetic that I like. So I can definitely use this palette to my advantage. That is super interesting. Well, wow, you see, I got more excited as time went on and my swatches got bigger and bigger and bigger. What an interesting set of colours. The only ones that really aren't justified here are the differences between this one, and this one. This one here is very much a maroon colour. This is somewhere between pink and maroon, and this is like a fuchsia colour. It's really not showing up in the camera, but the rest of them absolutely are. I am no expert when it comes to transparencies of paint. Despite that, there was a very marked difference just in the behaviour and the feel of the paint as I was putting it down. It's very obvious to me that the likes of this one here, which I know is a full coverage one because I've read the label to you, but compare that to some of these other ones like this one, I can tell the difference in transparency just by how much water was actually sitting in the half pans versus my brush, and then the feel of it and putting it down on the paper. This might be my favourite indigo colour like ever. The pigment feels very mobile, and you basically, if you sneeze in the wrong direction, this stuff's just going to go yes and like break away from you. It feels like quite a wayward paint, but I mean that in a good way, not in a bad way. Some of you will have tried, you know, mid-priced watercolour or bottom-end artist grade watercolours, and you really have to sort of like work the pigment and give it a bit of a shove in the right direction. This paint does not need any shoving, like at all. So I'm going to redo these swatches now, but I'm going to do them in grouped by transparency just so that we can see them side by side. Okay, so I've split this very roughly into 4 different sections just to show you the different transparency groups. I've also made this decision to change paintbrushes as well. The brush that I was using before is this Jackson's Raven quill brush, and this is like super absorbent. This is a really cheap paintbrush. It is of course the good old sea whites. I've picked the number 12 just because I've got a little bit of room for manoeuvre here. While far less absorbent than its Raven counterpart here, You all know I really like these brushes and I find them quite a good all-rounder. So it'll be interesting to see if the pigment is just as excited with a less absorbent brush and potentially less water in there as well. See if it still does its fancy little jig. I, for one, am very curious about that. I hope you are too. So there are 3 fully transparent colours. And there's 8 translucent and 8 semi-translucent colours, and then there's 5 that are in the full coverage category. So I'm going to find the opaque ones first. So I know that this is one. Well, it's going onto the brush. Spoiler alert, brush makes absolutely zero difference. Paint still wants to do its dance. That's amazing. Right, okay. Well, wasn't expecting that. Wow. Right, okay, so these are the full coverage colours. And I can say with certainty, especially this one here, you can see that you have full coverage. I do want to add a little bit more water though to see what happens. So I'm just going to dip my brush in that there and see. I guess it is never ending. I wonder if we can actually dilute this out. So there we go, that's just a wet brush. So obviously with these full coverage colours, a little bit of pigment is going to go a really long way, but as it is watercolour, obviously you are able to dilute it out and give yourself something a bit more interesting. It's interesting that it's this colour selection that is full coverage, and that's just what I'm going to call them. So I can definitely feel that when I'm using it, and you can see it very specifically here, here and here. It almost looks as if I've used a gouache. You know, it's quite a uniform flat colour. Now obviously we're going to do things and we're going to get damp brushes and we're going to stick them in places that they're they weren't originally designed to go. This is watercolour, it will lift, and even in these full coverage colours you can see that the lifting properties are good as well. For someone like me that's not as confident with watercolour as I am with other paint, this is very, very important. Very important because it allows you to fix mistakes, but also if you go in too heavy, you get a bit carried away, you have the option even with these full coverage colours to, you know, lighten it up, take a little bit off, but it's lifting fairly well. I don't imagine you would be able to get back to the actual bare paper with the full coverage colours, but certainly we can lift there with no issues. I would actually be tempted to say if I grab a little bit of tissue here that we might be able to get close to back to the white of the paper. Again, if you're doing that, you've made a really big boo-boo if you do that. But yes. Oh, I've got a little bit of pigment in there, but look, we can actually take it away, and these are pretty imposing colours. Even the Naples yellow, although it's a more delicate shade obviously, it's still very full and rich looking, but that's fabulous. And obviously if you wait till things dry a wee bit more, my indigo is looking quite interesting here. You can get some effects and stuff like that as well. And we've got some really nice granulation. If I just zoom in a little bit further here. Look at this here. This is great. I love this. So I am impressed with the full coverage colours. Let's move on now though. And I say very happy to work with a cheap paintbrush that's maybe not as absorbent as something that's, you know, a bit more meant for the purpose. I mean, these synthetic bristle brushes are meant to be a catch-all, like a good all-rounder. They're not designed specifically for watercolour, but they're doing a really good job. Okay, so I'm now going to go for the semi-coverage ones. So this is like the next step up. So let's grab some of them and see what happens. Now that still seems fairly opaque to me. Okay, oh, I got a bit excited there. So. Okay, so this is the semi-coverage category, and I have to say I feel very differently about this compared to the full coverage category. I feel like there's inconsistencies within this category as to what they're grouping together as semi-coverage. For example, I feel like you get much more coverage with this black than you do with this black, but also I felt that this colour here when it was going down, which is the earth yellow, I feel like that's much more delicate and more transparent than, say for example, its next door counterpart, which is the burnt sienna. So I honestly, these transparency categories I would take with a pinch of salt, given as well that when you're adding water, you're not doing it as an exact science unless you're actually going to use a bone dry brush, pipette out every single drop. On top of that, you can continually add water. So in terms of getting something transparent, I would say you can probably pay less attention to this. If you're looking for full coverage though, this is the scale you want to start at this end, because these are obviously your most coverageable. So, but there is definitely a difference between this category and this category. I'm anticipating that I won't see much of a difference between the semi-coverage and the translucent category, which is next. So there's also 8 colours in the translucent category too. For our translucent colours, these felt quite uniform, they felt quite nice. I would say though that this orange colour here, what I would call the offensive orange colour, I'm sure it's cadmium orange. Yeah, cadmium orange hue. I feel that this belongs up here. In contrast though, this ultramarine colour, I feel that this might be at the other end of the scale, and this might maybe ride this line between the translucent ones and the transparent ones, but I'm sure we'll find out in due course. This is by far my most favourable group of paints to work with, obviously because it's kind of middle of the road. That's more what I would be used to rather than having really heavy coverage watercolours. So I would say this is probably my comfort zone here. I like it. This colour here, Berlin Blue, that's tried a very different colour to what I expected, but I'm pleasantly surprised by it. It's quite nice. Okay, so let's move on to the fully transparent ones now. There's only 3 of these. Yes, see, that's what I would class as fully transparent. Good grief. Even when you put more colour down. Yeah, you're seeing right through that bad boy. This one, not so much. Yeah, that has more of a feel about it than this one, definitely. And again, you can see there, just as I've dragged the brush down, I think they've done a really good job of balancing this palette in terms of warm and cool colours, but just also the range of colours and the selection that they've decided to go with. This purple's doing its funky thing, and that's had a sort of backwash there. So if you compare it to the original swatch, those look like two completely different types of paint. And this is what I'm saying, like, you don't need to get too hung up on, oh, this transparency thing. They're watercolours, you can water them down. They will give different effects. You're never going to be able to get it uniform, but unless you are painting something very precise, or that is a particular area or a particular aspect of painting that you use as part of your art style, I think we'll all get on fine with these. So I want to do a little bit of mixing. I'm going to switch to the sparkly paper for this. I know you're not really going to be able to see the sparkle, but I know that it's there and you saw that it was there. And I just want to see how we're going to get on. Really, I've got no concerns about this at all, because I feel like I know how this is going to go. Let's try a couple of different things first of all. So let's try a little bit of a mix in the palette. So I'm going to grab some blue. So that's just that ultramarine colour. And I'm going to take some of this light green colour here, which I don't actually know the name of. May green. All the colours seem to have fairly sensible names as well, which is nice. And if I mix this together, okay, quite happy to mix together. And let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. Look how nicely that is going down on the paper as well. So that is obviously wet and dry, and one of the most common techniques we use is obviously wet and wet. So I'm going to grab some clean water. I'm going to pop it down on the paper. Now I do tend to find, and I mention this all the time, when it comes to wet and wet techniques, it's usually more down to the quality of your paper than your paints. However, not every aspect is blameless. So let's pop a little bit of this in. I was so excited about that, and it did exactly what I thought it was going to do. This paint is like, see, if it was a human, this paint would have an ASBO. That's an antisocial behaviour order if you're outside of the UK. Basically, this is like the hooligan of paint when it comes to wet and wet. But look at that, it was so keen to go. And we've tried paints here where we have to like kind of work it a little bit and, you know, maybe like try and tease it to get it to move about. No siree, this is going to do it all on its own. So I would highly recommend wet and wet techniques with this paint. Let's go. Like, let's just see what it wants to do. It is absolutely ready to play ball, and I think that's lovely. So yeah, wet and wet is an absolute win. I'm going to leave that to dry a little bit and just see what we can do to manipulate things and see how much movement we've got in there. We've already talked about lifting properties as well, but look how uniform this is. That is watercolour, and that was not a very measured paint stroke in a painting. That was me literally just swatching it out, and it is so uniform. So if you're a bit more like me, I like to use gouache and things, and I like the predictability of things like gouache. You kind of get that with this watercolour. But that's that. I've made a really pretty colour there. I'm really into that. It's drying fairly quickly as well. We've got a little bit of granulation because of obviously the colours that we've mixed together. See what happens now. I want to see how this is still slightly damp. It's not terribly so, but I just want to see how much is going to... Oh, look at that. That's really good. So we've got a nice ability to work on top here as well. Again, one of the things with watercolour is you have to be careful sometimes, especially if you're working away in one area, that you don't disturb the layer underneath. And again, some paints and papers are better for that than others. But this is really nice. I'm able to put detail down over the top here. That was quite a heavy brush stroke and it didn't disturb what was going on underneath. And the key to that as well is making sure that your brush isn't holding too much water. Look at this though. This has done this all on its own. I have done nothing to it. And it's quite happy to do its thing. So if I just grab the rest of what I mixed here, I just want to put that in and see if we can encourage things. And yeah, look, we can still move stuff about. So I can manipulate that green colour. Maybe I wanted it to come a little bit further up here. Or maybe I decide that, okay, I want to add in, you know, something else. So let's grab this purpley colour. So that was, again, if I refer back to my transparency chart here, that is in the translucent category. So I'm not expecting anything crazy to go on, but look. And I'll just pop that in there and again, maybe just let it do its thing. But, you know, maybe this is some sort of outside part to my artwork. And I want a nice tidy line there. I am able to pull that paint out. There's still quite a lot of water sitting there. But look how willing it is to go. I mean, that's just, oh yeah. One of my other tests that I like to do as well is, you know that quite often when I'm doing this, I mix an orange colour, and it's because it's a colour for you to see easily on the camera. I do try and make the most offensive shade of orange that I can. And obviously I do that by mixing red and yellow, because if I took the orange straight out the half pan, then that would be cheating. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to grab this yellow and I'm going to try and mix this on the paper. And I'm going to take this cadmium red, which we decided was quite offensive. This is one of the full coverage colours. So this should give me a nice block colour. And I think this is going to work really well because of the mobility and the willingness of the paint to just mix in with whatever's there. Look at that. Okay, so I am going to leave that to dry, and I'm hoping I'm going to get quite a nice block colour because of this range of transparencies that we have. So this is going to work really well for backgrounds and stuff. You know, if we wanted to do a little sunset job, maybe you've put your yellow down and you've decided, well, I'm going to make it like a hazy sunshine. So let's plop down some clean water. And, you know, you can maybe start adding in some streaks and things. And I'm almost pretty certain you can leave that to go and do its own thing and it'll sort itself out. I find that particularly useful when I'm doing sky or water. Sometimes it's better to let the paint find what it wants to do, and then, you know, you can decide what elements you want to put into your picture, you know, once it's kind of sorted itself out. It's a bit like me when I'm doing my hair. I wait and see what it wants to do and then I work around it because it's just much safer for everybody. Honestly, for a set of 24 paints at £50, I am saying that this is pretty good value for money. So it's starting to bleed out already, but if I take a clean brush, just a damp brush, it's going to let me work this out as much as I want. Now obviously, because it is quite mobile, you run the risk of obliterating every single, you know, brush stroke that you've had. So if you are on the more enthusiastic side, you might have to be careful that you don't wipe out all your hard work, because obviously that wouldn't be great. Okay, so this is fairly dry now, and I'm just going to take this brush. I can see a little bit of sparkle coming through at the bottom here. Okay, so yes. Right, I am all about this. this. I really am. And my orange, as suspected, is pretty uniform. It's not completely dry yet, but I am quite impressed with that. So I've labelled all the colours as well on this little chart here. Zoom in a bit here. There's only one 3-star light fast shade. Unfortunately, that is the indigo. The rest are all 4s and 5s. So they should be reasonably light fast. Names are predictable. Chromium yellow, chromium orange are hues, so it's a pigment that emulates chromium. It's not actual chromium. That's about it. We've got our quinacridone colours here in the transparent bit. That's quite a common pigment used in more transparent watercolours as well. I was quite surprised to see that they've listed this colour as brown umber and not some sort of soft black, but hey, whatever you want to call it is fine by me, because I'll probably make my own name up for it anyway. Fairly standard, nothing particularly out of the ordinary or funky. Just to finish up, I always like to say that the proof is in the painting. It's all very well swatching things out and farting about one thing and another and sparkly paper. You really need to paint something. So I've got a little line and wash that I did in my sketchbook ages ago, and it's been sitting there doing nothing. So I thought that'd be a really nice way to test out these colours. So here it is, my sketchbook. I'm having a wee happy dance to myself there. I don't know what that was all about. This was the little line and wash drawing that I'd started ages ago, and this is in my Sea White watercolour sketchbook. I sell these in the stash shop, so if you want to grab one of them, you can head to the link that is down in the description. That'll take you straight there. So yeah, the paper in this book is really, really absorbent. So in terms of maybe doing a little bit of a wash, which obviously the mobility of this paint has shown to be a good thing, similar to what's going on the sparkly paper here. Obviously quite impressed with that as well. And you can see that orange colour is still really flat after it's dried as well, and you can actually see the sparkles through that as well. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm going to get my torch out again here. Look at this. Yeah. Just look at them sparkles. Simple things, guys, honestly. But yeah, that the paint itself sitting really well on the Rubens paper. So at this point, I'm quite optimistic that if we do a wash for the sky in this little drawing that I've done, that will get some sort of similar outcome, hopefully, fingers crossed. So we want to start wet and wet, so you can see I'm back to this big Raven brush here, and I'm pointing out that bottom flap on the palette. I normally remove those. I find them really annoying. There's a pin that runs through there that you can pull out, and that whole bit will just come off, and you can still close the lid properly. It gets in the way, especially during filming, because I like you to be able to see the actual palette as I'm going as well, so you can see what I'm dipping into. Yeah, so anyway, wet and wet, that's what we're going for here. So I was thinking sort of orangey, reddy, into like purpley colours, like a really sort of late on sunset kind of thing. And very similar to what I did on the test sheet. I just wanted to basically whack everything down and let it do its thing. So there is a kind of controlled element here. These pale yellow patches that I've put down, that's actually going to be the sun reflecting off the clouds, and then there's going to be like a darker colour round about that. And obviously the sun's going to be setting near the horizon at the bottom, where I've got some of these ink lines in as well. And we go with some of the cadmium red. I did take a little bit off the brush there because, again, this is one of like the full coverage colours, so I didn't want it to overpower the colours that I'm going to put around about. And there we go. Oh, look. So I'm not too worried about what's in the foreground because I'm going to be using a darker colour over the top of that. I am kind of going to avoid the mountain at the right hand side there where my little church or building or whatever it is sitting. But in terms of these barley or wheat fronds that are poking up at the front, not concerned about that. You can see I've left a little space in the middle there that's a bit paler. That's where the sun's going to be setting, so I don't want too much red in there. There we go. Little light source from the sun. It may have disappeared behind the horizon, I think. And that is the Naples yellow that I've popped in there. And we're going to drop in some of these quinacridone colours as well. So these are quite transparent, and I'll mix them in with some of the other colours like the red there, but also when I start to put the purple and indigo in, which I'm going to have near the top. Obviously the further away from your light source, the darker it's going to be. So that will be focused mostly up the top. But it's just so easy to blend everything in with these watercolours. Like it really is a pleasure. So you can see I'm starting to build the colour up now, adding in a little bit of those that lovely purple colour, the dioxazine purple, and mixing in a little bit of pink. Half of me wants to leave it alone and just see what it does at this point, and the other half of me wants to try and fix it and get my blobs up there. And I just wanted to take a little bit out there. I've got a little bit of kitchen towel, and that's the clouds that I was, talking about earlier. I just felt the colour was a little bit intense, and I wanted a little bit more of a floofy effect, like more like clouds. I felt that it was quite linear, so just by dabbing away there, I've managed to lift some of the paint, because again, these paints have got really good lifting qualities, and that's lightened that up nicely. So that's starting to get a little bit braver now, and that is the indigo colour. Surprise. And what I'm trying to do is create a sort of like a vignette almost. So I want to have some darker colour, particularly along the top and along the bottom, and to draw, so that you can draw the eye into the centre, which obviously because that's where all the business is happening. So I'm being quite liberal there. Again, I'm probably a bit too confident with that. And I've popped a little bit under the cloud line there as well, just to give my lighter areas some definition. Again, that's really all about contrast. But I'm fairly confident even at this point that this will blend out really nicely. I won't have to give it much of a nudge so that it doesn't look too splotchy. But, we want to get as much colour in this as possible, make it pretty. And that was really my only intention apart from darkening down that top edge. So much fun. Okay, so for this bottom section here, this paint is a mixture of the dioxazine purple, a little bit of indigo, and a little bit of the brown umber, aka the warm black. And I just want to get a sort of first layer of paint down there, and you can see the amount of contrast that's given me, because it's much, much heavier and darker than what's going on in the skies. That was what I was kind of looking for. And the really nice thing about the actual painting part, and this is why I insist on doing stuff like this, is the paint is behaving the way I expected it to, and it's behaving exactly the same way as it did when we were swatching it out and testing it out for all the different things. So I am really impressed with this. It's going down really well on the paper in this sketchbook as well. So we've now tested these paints on 3 different types of paper, and it's very, very agreeable in all 3 instances. So very, very happy with this paint. Now I'm starting to add in a bit of the darker shades, so this is more indigo and black than purple, and this is just to give some depth and some interest in this kind of large block of colour at the front. Also to give some sort of contours, because I feel that that's like a rocky hilltop there where our little building and our trees standing. Just add in some details in the trees, again sticking to the same colours. We don't want to bring too much else into it, because the sky's looking pretty busy, pretty good. So overall, just to sort of finish up here while I'm finishing off the smaller elements of this very simple painting. Overall, I think the colours are very well balanced, and I like the fact that there are a few more muted colours in this palette compared to previous versions of these Paul Rubens watercolours. They're just a pleasure to use, and this particular palette may not be to everyone's taste, but I think the quality of the paints themselves has definitely improved over the different versions that they've brought out, and from this video I've thoroughly enjoyed using them. If you're looking for quite a comprehensive set that still has a bit of fun about it and has that lovely mobility within water, then I would highly recommend this. It's a very well-rounded set in my opinion. And I just want to say a big thank you to Paul Rubens again for sending me these set of paints. And if you are a Prime membership owner for Amazon, don't forget to go over to the Prime Day event and you can get yourself a set of these with 20% off. As I mentioned before, Amazon UK and Amazon Germany are not taking part in the deal, but you can obviously still click the links, which are all in the description below, and pick yourself up a set of these paints at your leisure. Even at £50, they are still incredibly good value for money, and I think overall this has been quite a successful little jaunt today. So just on to the final touches here, and I've got these little sort of sprigs of barley or wheat or whatever they are poking out. Had to kind of hold my breath doing this. You can see that I've stuck with the old sea white brush there. That's the size 12 round that I was using earlier on in the video, and that is also available in the stash shop. These brushes are super cheap, and because they've got that nice sort of spring in the synthetic fibres, they're really good for doing detail work like this as well, because they've got a really nice point on them too. And the end of that point is great for for doing the ears on the crop. Yeah, they're also good for leaf patterns as well, if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah, look at that. So good, so good. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I have had such good fun. Like, I've had an absolute ball with this, and it's been quite a long time since I've had a new supply to play with that's been given to me directly by the manufacturer. So for the third time, thanks again to everybody at Paul Rubens. It was much appreciated. I hope this has been informative for you guys. I hope you've maybe learned something today, and most of all, I hope you've had fun. So that is more or less it for today. I want to thank you very much for watching. I want to thank you for coming and hanging out, and of course I will see you very soon back in the cave for some more fun and playing with art stuff. Have a great day, everyone, and bye bye for now.